The Simone Feiler Podcast, giving authors a platform. Welcome to the podcast.
So happy to have Miriam Everett-Jones joining me on my podcast today. We've just wound up recording Miriam's first audiobook, Resilience, A Journey Empowered by Hope. It's such a gorgeous book. Welcome, Miriam. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you. It was actually a privilege to do my book with you. It was quite a journey for us, wasn't it?
It really was. How did you feel narrating your own work in there?
Well, it is my story, and I've got to say that I'm not uncomfortable about the studio or working with a microphone, because I was a professional singer, and also I've done backing vocals, studio work and TV commercials and things like that. So it's quite, that in itself is an easy space for me. Yeah. So that didn't worry me, but I've got to say I've had to live over the 3 days that we recorded the book. That was 46,200 words in 3 days. It's a lot of talk.
It was mammoth. And we certainly covered some ground because we went through Central Africa in your band. Mm-hmm. We met Daryl Braithwaite. He sang the Miriam song on stage. That's such an awesome story, which you'll hear in the book. And also the other end of the spectrum, you went through a couple of really bad relationships and
marriages, yes.
And I can imagine that would be draining, having to. Is it different reliving that in the audio booth as compared to writing it? How does it compare?
Well, when I did the rough of the book, I did 70 years of my life in 70 days. That was last year. But that's just the beginning, because then the editing occurred. And I've got to tell you, I did not want to write this book because I knew that I would have to dig in deep and get down to those deep places that I have pushed behind me. And it's been hard. It's been a hard journey to overcome the hurt and overcome the shame. And, you know, my faith kept me going. I had to provide for my children, so I was able to keep myself going purely because I had strong goals. And that was, my children would lack for nothing. That was my goal. That the house was certainly more peaceful without their father. There was less stress, but there was a lot more on me, of course, you know, as the sole provider.
Yeah.
And we did all sorts of things. And, you know, lack of money was part of the issue, although I've had many years in sales and marketing now, and I've always been a top performer. And that's me, but it was also necessary provision for the family. And of course, I didn't hide the amount of hurt that was going on. I hid it, you know, from them, because I didn't want them to feel guilty or part of it, because children do. They were 8 and 11 when their father left. And I probably overcompensated. You know, we had students, international students as well, so I would come home to 3 or 4 teenagers.
Wow. And your little ones as well?
No, in total.
Right.
So they became, as time went on, but, you know, I would come home to 4, needing to be fed and watered and homework and learn how to use an iron and speak English, and, you know,
yeah,
it was busy.
That's very busy, and working as well.
Very busy and working full time. So life was very challenging, and this is why I didn't want to write the book, because I knew I would have to dig down into those painful areas, and it was tough, very, very tough. And I spent so much time in tears, like getting it out yet again. Why did I do it? It was not my idea, and I was so reluctant. I knew there was going to be a book. For 12 years before I finally relented, I felt compelled to write the story. And my only joy is that people can relate to it through different circumstances in their life. So there were many things that went on. There was bankruptcies ×2, marriages ×2, divorce ×2, 2 children, yay, up we go, and 2 grandchildren now, yay, double yay. You know?
Aww, so you've come a long way.
Well, yes, because in that path we lost homes, we lost cars, we lost everything, we lost investment properties, we lost our dreams.
It was certainly traumatic, that second marriage in particular, because you certainly went through the mill with that, you know, and there was some fairly scary moments where, yeah, I could feel the fear when you were reading it, and also feel, you know, the pain and the agony that you went through just from your relaying the words in the audiobook.
Yes. And that's why I found it very hard, because it was quicker to relate it in the book, and there were a few places where I got choked and we both shed a tear, and then there were places where we had a bit of a giggle and a laugh.
Yeah, very true.
And had to start again.
Yeah.
Yet again and again.
And don't do it with a smile in on your face, Miriam. Remember, this is a sad part.
This is the sad part.
But a few tissues were certainly
required.
used.
Yes. But
how do you feel? How do you feel now that you've got it out? Are you glad that you've done it in audio as well?
I am so glad. And it's funny how things go, because I would never have considered audio myself, only because I personally get distracted with audio. That's just my personal experience. I am a reader. I love to read. But as my life is busier and busier, because now I'm also a business coach, so I am a qualified counsellor. I did my degree to gain my counselling accreditation, and then I did life coaching, and now I'm a business coach, and I'm very excited about that journey. It was really funny how it came to me 3 days in a row. One, someone had said in passing about audiobook, and I kind of clicked. You know, sometimes you're supposed to do something, doesn't come to you naturally, but it just, I don't know, Audible is promoting itself everywhere at the moment. You go and book a car park and you get free Audible. Oh, what? No, I mean, they're just everywhere. They're over everything. They're such heavy promoters at this point in time. And so it may have been that, but it came up the next day.
That's good for the listener.
Oh, yes. I mean, it's great. Then the very next day, I had a dinner party at home, and it came up about Audible. Oh, so you're going to do Audible now? And I went, well, it's funny you should say that. And then came the discussion, well, who is going to do it? Because it's got to be the right voice. And I just said, well, obviously I would do it myself. I would be very comfortable with doing that. And it is my story.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it would break my heart to actually hear someone who couldn't connect with it. It wouldn't be the same.
I always encourage authors to self-narrate, because you've written the words, you know the story best, you know the emotion involved. And if you're not shy in front of a microphone, you know, there's definitely...
Yes.
The legacy there that is even enhanced. Your words, your voice.
Yes.
It's there for your future generations to hear.
Which is pretty awesome, actually, when you think about it. Then, after that discussion, it just was whirring around in my head, who uses Audible? Is it really growing that big? And then I was at church the next day. This is the third day in a row. And I had noticed this couple at church. They're a more mature couple. And he's a very good-looking man, and he always has his wife close by. She's either tucked into his arm, or she's close by, and he's just kind of like there, talking to somebody else. But they turn out, they're so noticeable because they're so lovely. And I'd only ever said hello to them previously. And then this particular time, they were both together. Her arm was tucked in his, and it looked so cute. And
that's real love right there, by the sounds of it.
That's it. And then... we got talking about this, that, and everything, and then it's kind of like, well, what are you doing with yourself, Miriam? And I get, well, actually, I've just written a book. And so they asked what the book was about, and I said, well, it's my story, but there's a lot of things in there, and I believe it is going to be inspirational, and I hope, because that's the whole purpose of the book, that people would find and be able to relate to different circumstances of, losing things, as in death, losing a partner, losing a loved one. Can be as impacting on some people as losing the cat.
Yeah.
They come into the same category. Loss is loss.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things in that journey that people would relate to. And I really want to inspire and encourage people to rise up and grab hold of their life again, and not give up, but find the thing that they were destined to do and be, and, give them tools to be able to walk on, and then just take that with resilience and be fully satisfied, make the most of their lives. We only have one chance here. Let's make the most of it, everybody. And so we were talking, and she said, well, I hope you're going to do Audible. I went, well, and she said, well, because I only have 6% sight, and that's the only way I can read a book, and I want to read your book. And I said, well, do you know what? I'm going to commit to Audible. I'll look into it straight away, and I will do it. And, it was her beautiful face, and I've got to say, these two look so gorgeous, and I just wondered how much he puts into the way she's turned out which is a really incredible expression of love. I don't know when she lost her sight, but, if she normally presented herself so beautifully.
Like you mean he did her makeup?
Yeah, I don't know how much she manages with 6% sight and how much she goes, honey, I know how to do it. I've been watching you for years. Come on, let's do
beautiful?
This. I know. Anyway, so, and there was times when we were recording, which you know about, and I got really emotional and I was tired, and all I could do was think about her face, and all I could think of is if nobody listens to Audible but for her, then it's worthwhile. And so it was her face that kept me going, actually.
Right. Yeah, you kept saying occasionally, like, I'm doing this for her.
Yes.
She's here. She's here with me now.
That's it.
Isn't that wonderful that she can be that inspiring to, make this all happen, basically? Because you got the 3 signs in a row. The third one, that clinched the deal.
That clinched it.
And do you know her name?
No.
Yeah.
I know I'll meet her again, and I'm going to delight. Wait, Simone just has to finish it off by the end of March, and we just have to put it up on Audible, and then you'll be able to listen to it.
Yeah, isn't that fantastic?
I am so excited for her.
Yeah, that's very cool.
And as I say,
and for everyone else.
It's
such a great story, and in particular for single mums, because obviously you went through, 2 very traumatic relationships. You had your children and you went out and worked and obviously kept a brave face in front of your kids. So many, in particular nowadays, so many single mums are suffering the same. They have to look after their children. They have to work.
Yes.
And, I think this is...
It's a hard road.
It's going to help them by listening to your book. Good. Or give them tips on how to, remain resilient and strong to get through this.
Yes.
Because we all know, well, I've got teenagers that are 19. I've still got a 16-year-old, but the time flies.
Oh, it does.
And it is a real struggle when you're in it. I know, being a single mum myself, when you're in amongst it. But all of a sudden, the kids are 18, and then you get your own time to kind of...
They drive a car. Oh, my goodness, that makes a difference.
They drive a car. They've got their own friends. They've got their boyfriend or whatever. And
then you go, well, hang on, what about me?
Yeah. Luckily, I've got...
You've got your business.
I've got my business. So,
yes.
But, I think you've got a great story there, Miriam, that's going to help a lot of, in particular, single mums. But
male or female. I know different people have said to me that because the book is already out there and people are reading it. So I have been amazed. Things like, oh my gosh, you got me in on the first page. But it could be for the lion or the lioness heart. It really doesn't matter, because we're talking about resilience. We're talking about overcoming shame. We're talking about overcoming pain, past relationships, loss. We're talking about losing possessions, losing your dreams, all those things. And that can relate to anybody. I mean, I know that it pings with you because it's your situation. But any of those situations could be anybody's story.
And even this situation now, like you've gone through all of that, and look at you now, like you've just finished recording your audiobook, you've written the book, you're a business coach, you're doing so incredibly well,
And I'm just excited because I think everything that we do in life, so long as we can heal from it, we can actually use that situation in order to help others and empathise with them. But it's interesting, the feedback that I have had, people are saying, I couldn't put it down, I've read it in 2 days. That's the readers. Others will get to it. It's sitting on the bookshelf along with 6 others they haven't read. I had a lady come to my place the other day, and she had read the book, and she walked in my door and she said to me, I can't believe you're still alive. I went, yeah, I am. But yes, it was close. So there were a few situations there where they were dangerous situations just in locality, but then there was one point where I really couldn't cope. But for anybody who, and it's easy, this is not mental illness. There's a difference between mental illness and mental health. And I think a lot of people, particularly during COVID, right, who thought that they were strong, resilient, or they just kept doing life. And then all of a sudden, with all the changes that occurred and that were close at home, or maybe it was the work situation, and people's lives were falling apart, particularly, in places where they were in severe lockdown and, they got depressed. And
they couldn't see their loved ones, or loved ones were dying in a different state. It was awful.
All those situations. And so, a lot of people fell into depression and anxiety. Now, that does not mean to say they have mental illness. No. all of us can be subject to mental health. And it's easily, once it's righted, once they have found their way through those situations. PTSD is a terrible thing for people, but it can be overcome. And the key to that is talking it out generally in a safe space and taking steps, steps of gratitude. Gratitude is a key thing.
It is. It's very awesome.
Because you can wake up in the morning and just be overwhelmed with the repeat of the pain. Or you're going to get yourself out of bed and you're going to go for a walk and be thankful for the blue skies. Be thankful that we live in a land that is relatively so at peace here in Australia. And, I know that this podcast could go anywhere in the world, but you may not be in peace where you are, but you may have your family around you. You can always find 1,001 things, or maybe even if you only find one or two, to have a good day. And with that better mindset, you can certainly be an overcomer of all those negative situations, which, absolutely can be real. And they are, at the time, they are completely real.
Yeah.
When I was at one point where I didn't want to go on,
It was a very sad section of the book.
It was.
And thankfully, you're here.
Of course. But on that particular day, when I missed the plane, the one-way ticket to take me away from it all, I have a friend with me and she's talking to me and I am thinking, oh my gosh, I missed the plane. What am I going to do? The disappointment that I couldn't carry through with it. All these circumstances happened. And then I went, okay, my opportunity is gone. Oh my gosh, how could I have even thought about this? How would my children cope? How would my family cope? How would my friends cope that they had missed it so badly that they didn't even know because I was quiet? And then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, the money problem, the whole situation is still there. I need to go and sell a house, which is exactly what I did. I had an appointment in my diary and I went out and sold a house that afternoon, 2 hours later. It was a change of mindset. And that's what I'm talking about. There are tools in this book that will help you get through, the things in your life. I've come from that background and with training, and so I've incorporated those things. And also my faith. It was my faith that held me steady, because hope
that's what I was
is an anchor.
I was going to ask you about, because you do talk about it in the book, how it came about. And we had a chat prior to you recording when you first rocked up. How you said, I wasn't going to write this book, but God wrote this book through me.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
The title of the book I had, I'd already been through a really hard time. I was working with a business coaching company, and so we were dealing with businesses, a bit like what I'm doing now, but I am the coach and it's my business, right? Whereas then I was working for a company that was a RTO, registered training organisation. And the director said to me, we used to get together and tell these and share our stories of how our using the business programs was changing our business, and all we were looking for was a change. And it didn't matter whether it was 1 degree or if it was 180 degrees or if it was 90 or 63 degrees of change. All we were wanting is change. And we would celebrate them. Some people were good speakers and some people were bad speakers, but it didn't matter. We would clap our hands and we'd stamp our feet. Woo, 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 woo. Yeah. And, so these were very exhilarating nights. And he said to me, look, Miriam, it's time for you to tell your story. And I went, oh, no. I don't have a story. I don't have a story. Because, when you've been an entertainer on the public stage for years, you turn up and the show goes on regardless. I have fainted behind curtains when the curtain is closed and I've passed out with exhaustion from flu, but the show still had to go on. So if I was having a bad day or a bad month or a bad year, I still got up. I brushed myself off and I went, okay, just get yourself together and go and do what you do best. Go out there and go get it, girl. So nobody knew that there was this underlying, all these things that I still hadn't dealt with, even though I had done my degree by this time, right? And we had many hours of counselling, many hours of counselling one another in order to practice our skills. And I had many watersheds, but we are like layers of an onion. And as the layers peel off, there's more down there. And then you peel those off and there's more down there. Anyway, so he would not give up on me telling my story. I told my story. I was agony preparing it. I got up there. I was so on fire to get myself through this. I delivered my story and I stopped. And nothing happened. Nothing. No cheer, no noise, no hand clap, nothing. And you could have heard a pin drop. And I went, oh my gosh, I don't even know what I said. What did I say? Everyone's just like stony still, you know. And I walked back to my seat, sat down with my head down. I wanted to crawl my way through to China. I was like, oh, please, just open up floor. I'm going to disappear from here. I'm so embarrassed. I must have said something really terrible. And the room didn't move. It did not move. And then all of a sudden, resilience boomed out and it hit my chest. Oh, that's a book. And I went, no. No. So 12 years later, 12 years later,
right,
it took before I gave in. And so I actually finished working December 2020. I'd been moved aside because of COVID. And then I wasn't well. You know, I had Epstein-Barr virus. I had all sorts of things going on. I'm not actually. The people who had worked with me said, "Oh, your book must be about all the things that happened to you." And I said, "No, I'm not even going to talk about that." So I think there's 5 words that actually refer to 2 years of really quite major things going on. And I'd say to them, "Listen, it's just my transport system. It's been overlooked." It's going through its, lifetime service right now. Lifetime service. This is going to set me off for the rest of my life, which I plan to be another 30 years. So I'm just having a good one. It's more than spark plugs and tyres this time. It's the new engine.
Yeah, it's the major service.
Major one. And I just knew in January last year, that was January 22, that the time had come for the book to be written. Right. And I just knew it. Every time I walked past my laptop, I went, nope. But then the Lord spoke to me and he said to me, this is not your story so much as it's my story in your life. And I sat back from the computer because everything I wrote was just dead wood. I said, well, that I can do because you've been amazing in my life ever since I was a little girl. So then I started to write. And then it was a case of, I used my journals. I wanted to make sure that it was correct. I didn't want to put in detail that was, incorrect. We had terrible times through the editing process. We lost copy. I had to rewrite things. The editor was in India, and we had time lapses where nothing would happen. And she would write into my copy. She had actually written 5 books, and she was a fiction writer.
Right.
So when I wouldn't come back with the goods that she's asking for, because she's wanting more, go down deeper. I want more blood, more gore.
Oh dear.
More tears, more
Seriously,
stress.
more than that?
Yes. And when she said something from a phrase, she said, I want more on that. I went, absolutely no. I am not going to discuss that any further. She tried. I went, no.
So you
I'm
had
not
your
negotiable.
call?
And every time. It's always your book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But she wrote into my story that I was an abused woman. And I went, what? That's not the situation at that point. And I fired it all back out again. And then I wrote in to replace what actually was going on. It had to be my story. And, it was a case of what do I put in and what do I leave out? I don't want to carry on and on and on. I just want to get the basic things that need to be told in order to be able to. There's a whole lot more that happened. And I've been kind to people in the book, I've got to tell you. One husband actually threatened to stop it legally. And I said, you've got nothing to worry about. I've been kind because I loved you and I'm a kind person. So they're actually seeing the good side of you.
Oh, that's good.
With a bit of hurt going on.
Have they read it?
Yes,
And what
apparently.
did they say? What did he say?
No, he just referred to a chapter that had his name on the first chapter. Right. And he said, I'm speaking to my lawyer about this. You've got to take that out. And I said, The book is not about you. There's a story much greater than you. It's not about you. You're not that important.
Well, that's satisfying words from your end.
It's just not that important.
Gold.
Yeah. And and because I've lived some good years, I mean, I've had a really full life. I guess there's a lot of little things in the journey of life that, where I've taken a stand for women also.
You're definitely an innovator. The section where you were talking about working at Westfield, but they were saying, we're not going to employ a woman to do promotions. We've never done that before. And you were like, well, what?
A management position. They'd said, well, we simply don't employ women in managerial roles. And I said, well, surely you would employ the person that's going to do the job the best and would serve the company the best to get the best result. It's all about who is the right person for the job. It doesn't matter whether they're male or female. That's irrelevant. It doesn't matter whether they're Chinese or if they're English. What does it matter? You want the right person for the job to get the job done. And they said, oh, I'm sorry, but we don't have women in managerial roles.
You were a trailblazer, so you forged the way for women.
Well, I just went back in my normal fashion, and every month I turned up at the door of Frank Lowry, and who was Lend-Lease, that owned Westfield at that time, and I said, I'm here. I'm ready to serve. I'm ready to do the job. I've got the muscle on. I'm good. Sorry, we don't employ women. And that went on for several months until he finally gave in. And I got the role that I wanted as an assistant manager at Westfield Shopping Towns Parramatta, which was, and still is, it's a very big centre, and I did all the on stage productions and have had so much fun. I loved it. I loved it. I had an audience again. I wasn't a singer now, but I still had an audience. That sounds outrageously, I don't know, brash or... it's all about me. It's not about me, actually. It's about connecting with people and giving them, well, this was a reality show, the biggest one there, that people couldn't believe that I came up with this idea, that people would actually get on a big stage in front of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people every week and check in with the scales and talk about their journey of losing weight, because reality television wasn't even in existence. You
were doing that on stage.
And I couldn't believe that these women actually managed to talk about this in all of their bumpiness in front of all these people. The crowd loved it, and the shops were going fabulously. And in Westfield Parramatta at that time, I don't know how it is now, I've been there for years, there were 3 layers of people, 3 tiers, and they all focused down on that centre stage. Huge. And so wherever you look, there just were people, and they'd come back the next week the same time to check in and see how they're going, and they were like, yeah, go Pat, you can do this, win the big prize.
Did you come up with that concept?
Oh yes, no, it was up to me to come up with
Isn't that
promotions.
Fabulous? So...
And
now,
then,
basically, that's The Biggest Loser on telly almost, isn't
it? That's it.
You should look into that. Royalty for that.
But it didn't take long before they gave me my own centre. And that one I absolutely adored. It was not far away, but it was a smaller centre. And it was a centre I promoted with the community centre with a heart. And I used to wear a heart necklace, and I carried a heart handbag. And everything that we did in the way of fundraising was for the Spastic Society of New South Wales across the road. We did all sorts of innovative things to raise money for them, fashion parades and dinner parties after hours and fun runs. And we actually bought, I just thought about this the other night, we bought a device so that they could read without Braille.
Right.
The raised letters.
Yeah.
And they had to pass this under, it was and I don't even know how it works, but they had to pass it. So this was in the late 70s. They had to pass this book under this particular machine, within this machine under a light, and I don't know whether it became an audio thing from there, but they didn't have to use Braille. And it was just, I was very wow at that time. It was expensive, but we managed to raise the money for them. We just did other things, like people have trouble with people who are handicapped, particularly back then. Now, we're celebrate.
Much more inclusive.
Yes, we are. And I love it that there is a space for people to, exert themselves in sport and all sort of things and be celebrated as equals in their own field. You know what I mean? It's fantastic. But back then, people found it difficult to be confronted with these people. So what I did, I organised a token exchange so that they could come and shop over with tokens at Westfield Shopping Town at North Rocks. And people got used to seeing these little groups of 2 and 3, of the older ones, of course, who could actually go with a shopping list and make a purchase with the coins, which we had organised as a management team with the particular shops they could go to. So it brought them into society, and it made society more comfortable with accepting them, and then, it just became much warmer. It was just beautiful. It was a fabulous time. It was great.
Yeah, it sounds like you really enjoyed working there.
Sure.
And that's not even really in the book. But the book, you obviously have had a jam-packed life.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and obviously experienced some amazing things, and some of them you've documented. I reckon you've got another book in you somewhere, Miriam.
Well, I know that there is even now. I'm actually in collaboration with another book. That's just a collaboration with other coaches. But there will be a sequel to the story that's going to be bigger and better. Because I know my coaching journey, I have a vision, and it's big.
That's awesome.
My coaching journey and also my speaking.
Tell me, if people want to get in touch with you about business coaching, how can they find you? Where do they look?
Sure. Well, there's 2 ways onto the website. It's either my name, the easiest way, miriameverett-jones.com, or empoweredchoicescoaching.com. And on the website, there's different places where you can just contact me, and it'll come through by email, and then I will contact you back, and we can take it from there as to see how I can help you.
Excellent. Do you work one-on-one with people that come on board, or do you have other people working with you? Or
I have particularly now we have this business breakthrough program. Oh, it's so exciting. I am so excited about it because I belong to the International Coaching Institute, and they are mammoth in Australasia and beyond. We're actually represented in 100 countries around the world.
Oh, that's big.
But the standard is of complete excellence. And Remy Pearson is a woman to really take notice of. I've never had a mentor as powerful as she is. If she's talking to a group of people, she's $30,000 a day. This woman has earned the right for that sort of money. And she has, it's been said, and she has said it herself, that she's spent over $700,000 on education. Right. She is a powerhouse, and I'm so privileged to have found my way into this culture and this environment. It's so, it's such a family, and it's so profoundly professional. And so we have this, it's a 12-month program to raise any type of business, actually, to help them expand and their business. So any business looking for growth and expansion, and of course increase profits. And I work with the owners initially because success is an inside job. And once the owner has fully mapped out his values, his mission statement, the purpose of his business, some of these things get lost because a lot of people start business because they're good at something. They're good as a hairdresser, they're good as an electrician, they're good as a whatever, IT person. They go, I'm going to go into business, but they don't have any business skills. They don't know how to do a competitive market analysis. They don't know how to put structures in place. But the first thing is them. And anyone can go onto my site and do it's more than a personality test, but it's to find your strengths, and it's a profiling tool, which is unique to ICI. We created it. There are many profiling tools. You can go on and get them, but this is one that's been designed to take in the personality types, but in view of a business. So it's not about you so much as it's about the business. It is you, but you in the business world, because there's you at home and there's you in your business. And how do you treat your staff? And how do you hire your staff and retain your staff? And if all that's not working well, unfortunately, we have to look in the mirror. And then if if needed, and when needed, and I'd always do at least one, I will be doing a session. Because we haven't, I mean, obviously it's a 12-month program, and it's a pilot program, which we've all done chunks of. It's brilliant. It is so brilliant. And it's something that a business could go through repetitively, because the reason why people's businesses fail is they are reluctant to change. You know, they think, oh no, we're in the groove, we're doing well. But you constantly have to be looking at your competition, or how the world has changed. I mean, you take a look at Yellow Pages. So one has to be very ready for change. And some personalities find change easily, others don't. But we are now all global. You know, we have a unique local presence, but we also, if we want to, can be so easily global if our whatever it is that we're working with relates to that, or it can do that. So you've got to look far and wide as to see what's going on out there. So we have these tools, I have these tools in order to be able to help that whole process of, you know, doing all those checks and balances, doing an analysis on the business to see how to go about these things, doing incredible SMART goals. Like, I've never heard SMART goals before. I've got a very strong sales and marketing background, and I've been to so many sales, marketing and motivational sessions you would not believe. But I have never, ever, ever lived SMART goals as I do now. You know, it's just like, oh my gosh. I've seen things that I've not actually seen before. So it's very empowering.
Sounds very exciting. And so if people want to contact you, let's hear your websites again more time.
Sure. Just my name, MiriamEverett-Jones.com or empoweredchoicescoaching.com.
A lady of many talents. Not only is she business coaching, she's just finished writing and recording her audiobook, Resilience, A Journey Empowered by Hope. It's a wonderful story. Hopefully we'll get it out in the next 6 weeks or so.
Awesome. Can't wait for it to get out.
Yeah, at your favourite online audiobook retailer. And Miriam, I really appreciate you joining my podcast today. Thanks for the chat.
Oh, thank you. But can I also just say one more thing? This is for you to close off, but I want to say that as someone coming in and doing an audiobook, right from the very beginning, your emails were so professional in giving me the confidence that you were totally all over this, and all I had to do was get myself here.
Oh, thank you.
And though you're across the other side of town and, you know, all those sort of things, it was so well worth seeking you out. I'm not even sure. Oh, I do know how. You were referred by someone else who is in the whole business of books.
Awesome.
And
love that.
Yes. So I'm thrilled. I'm so pleased because it was excellent. We journeyed together and we've become friends through our days of being together, which hasn't been a long time, but it feels like we've done life.
Yeah, it has. It's been a really wonderful getting to know you and hearing your story and working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining the Simone Feiler Podcast. What's your story? Contact Simone for a chat at brisbaneaudiobookproduction.com.